I sat in the stillness of my room, the faint hum of the night piercing through the quiet. It was 2:47 a.m., a time when most are lost in deep sleep, unaware of the strange twist my life was about to take. The phone rang, an unexpected sound that broke the silence like a scream in the dark. Startled, I reached for the phone on my nightstand. My eyes blurred as I saw the name on the screen. Michael, my son's name, lit up my phone. My heart stopped. Michael's number had been disconnected years ago. For almost 2 decades, it had remained dormant in my contacts, a constant reminder of what I had lost, a memory I couldn't let go of, a connection that kept me tethered to the past. I never deleted it. The thought of removing it, even though I knew it was futile, felt like losing him all over again. His number was more than just digits on a screen. It was a piece of him that remained, even after death had taken him away. But now, here it was, calling me. My thumb hovered over the screen, hesitation gripping my chest. The phone kept ringing. 4 rings, 5, 6, each second dragging out the moment, each one louder than the last. Was this a cruel joke? Was this a glitch? My mind raced through all the possibilities. And then, on the 6th ring, I answered. For a brief moment, there was nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that made my skin crawl. I thought, maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I had hit the wrong button. Maybe it was some sick prank. But then, I heard it. Breathing. Slow, steady breaths. My heart thundered in my chest as the air grew thicker with tension. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a recording. I knew that voice. I had heard it every day of my life for 19 years. It was my son's voice. But it was different now. It was strained, confused, as if he were reaching out from somewhere far away. "Dad," he whispered. The word echoed in my mind like a punch to the gut. It was him. My son, Michael. His voice, the one I hadn't heard in 2 decades. My throat went dry. I couldn't speak. My mind spun. How was this possible? "Where am I?" he asked. His voice was shaky, unsure. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, my pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't know how to respond. How do you answer a question like that when you've already buried the person asking it? "Michael?" I finally croaked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was thin, broken, desperate. There was a long pause. And then, more words, each one coming through with the same confusion, the same fear. "I don't know where I am," he said, his voice trembling. "I don't know what's happening. Everything feels wrong." I felt like I was drowning in the sea of his words, each one dragging me further into the depths of this impossible moment. The logical part of my brain screamed that this couldn't be real. Michael was gone. He was dead. I had buried him with my own hands. I had seen his body. I had touched him. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to be speaking to me. But his voice was real. I knew that voice. I needed to get a grip. I needed answers. "Michael, where are you? What's going on?" I forced the words out, though they barely made it past my lips. But there was no answer, just more silence, and then the sound of him breathing faster, like something was wrong, like he was trapped in an unseen nightmare. "I don't know," he said again. "I remember the accident. I remember dying. But then I woke up, and everything is different. Nothing makes sense. I don't know where I am, Dad. I don't know who I am." I stood up from my bed, my legs shaky beneath me. This couldn't be happening. My son was dead. I had seen him. I had buried him. I had mourned him for 20 years. And yet, here he was, talking to me, as real as he had ever been. This is the first section, and as we agreed, it's roughly 1,000 words. What do you think of the tone and direction so far? Let me know if you'd like to continue or suggest adjustments. Thank you for your feedback. I understand that you prefer the tone and direction to align with the intense, emotional climax of the story. Let's continue from where we left off, maintaining that tension and sense of the surreal. My mind raced, but my body didn't respond. I was standing there holding the phone, trying to wrap my head around the impossible. Every logical thought shattered like glass in my mind. How could this be happening? Was I hallucinating? Was I dreaming? Maybe grief had finally cracked me wide open, and this was my mind playing tricks on me. But I knew this wasn't a dream. I felt the cold air in the room. I heard the hum of the phone in my ear. "Michael?" I whispered again, my voice barely audible. There was a pause, a long, drawn-out silence that made the air thick with tension. I waited for him to speak, for something, anything to prove this wasn't some twisted joke or a hallucination. But when he finally spoke again, it wasn't the answer I expected. "Dad, something's wrong." His voice cracked, and I could hear the panic in it. "I don't know how to explain it. Everything feels off. I don't know where I am or what's happening, but I remember the accident. I remember the truck hitting me. I remember dying." A cold shiver ran down my spine. He remembered dying. He knew what had happened to him. He knew he had died. But now he was calling me. Alive. Or at least it sounded like him. His voice, his breath, the way he said my name. Everything was exactly as I remembered. "I don't understand," I stammered, feeling like I was losing my grip on reality. "Michael, how can this be happening? You were buried. I buried you, son." "I know," he said, his voice growing weaker, more desperate. "But I woke up. I don't know where I am, but I feel different. I don't feel like me. I think I'm dead, Dad. I think I'm a ghost or something. People walk right through me like I'm invisible. I can't touch anything. I'm not supposed to be here." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My son, the boy I had buried, was telling me he was some kind of ghost, trapped somewhere he couldn't understand. I could feel my chest tightening, my heart racing. The rational part of my brain screamed that this was impossible. This couldn't be real. And yet there it was. His voice, so familiar, so broken, coming through the phone. "Michael, you're not a ghost," I managed to say, trying to steady my breathing. "You're talking to me. Ghosts can't use phones. This is real. You're real." "I don't know," he said softly. "I'm not sure what I am, but I need you, Dad. I need you to help me. I'm scared. Everything feels wrong." His words broke something inside me. I had been holding it together for so long. I had built walls around my grief, my loss, trying to keep it contained, trying to live without him. But now, hearing his voice again, feeling the pain in his words, it shattered everything. "Where are you, Michael?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Tell me where you are. I'll come get you. I'll find you. Just tell me where you are." There was another long silence. Then, I heard the sound of footsteps through the phone, muffled, like he was moving around in a dark space. "I don't know," he said, the fear in his voice growing. "I'm in some kind of building. It's dark. I don't know how I got here. I've been looking for something that makes sense, but everything is wrong. I found a phone, and I remembered your number. It's the only thing I remember." I felt a surge of panic rise in my chest. "Michael, listen to me. I'm coming. I'm coming to get you right now. Tell me where you are. Please, I need you to tell me." "I don't know where I am," he said again, his voice cracking. "I wish I could tell you, but I don't know how I got here. I don't know where I am." I felt my mind spinning, my thoughts racing. This couldn't be happening. My son was dead, but here he was, calling me, asking for help. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Was it a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from? But I couldn't sit there, frozen, anymore. I had to act. I had to do something. "Stay where you are, Michael," I said, my voice more firm than I felt. "Don't move. I'm coming to you. I'll find you. Just stay where you are." "I'll try," he said, his voice softer now. "I'm scared, Dad. I don't know what's happening. Please hurry." And then the line went dead. I held the phone to my ear, staring at it, my heart pounding in my chest. The silence that followed was deafening. No more breathing, no more voice, just dead air. I pulled the phone away from my ear, my hands trembling, my body numb with shock. The call timer showed 9 minutes and 43 seconds. My mind was a whirl of confusion, my heart aching with the sound of his last words. "Stay where you are." But it was too late. The call had ended. I couldn't move. The room felt too small, the walls closing in around me. The phone, still warm in my hand, felt like a lifeline and a curse at the same time. My son had just called me. My dead son. The one I had buried 20 years ago. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a trick. It was him. It had to be him. I didn't know what to do next. My mind was racing, my thoughts scattered. How could this happen? How could Michael be calling me from the dead? I had seen him. I had touched him. He was gone. He was supposed to be gone. And yet he had just spoken to me, desperate and confused, like he was trapped in some kind of nightmare. I didn't waste another second. I knew I had to act. I had to find him. But where would I even start? The call had given me nothing. No address, no clear explanation. Just a panicked plea for help. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The first thing I needed to do was gather my thoughts. I couldn't lose myself in the madness of it all. I had to keep my head clear. I called the number again. The call went straight to voicemail, just like it had before. The same recorded message, the same cold, disembodied voice. The number was disconnected. I tried again, and again, and again. 15 times in total, the same message every time. My hands were shaking as I held the phone. My body felt weak, like I was standing on the edge of something too terrifying to understand. But then, as if the universe was mocking me, the phone rang again. I jumped, nearly dropping the phone in my surprise. My heart pounded in my chest as I saw the name on the screen. Michael. I didn't wait this time. I pressed the answer button immediately, my breath coming in shallow gasps. "Dad," came his voice again, this time even weaker, more fragile. The sound of him saying my name made my stomach turn. "Dad, please. I don't know how much longer I can't stay here." The desperation in his voice tore at my soul. I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't make sense of it. I had to find him. I had to. "Michael, listen to me. I'm coming to get you. Just tell me where you are. Please, just give me something," I begged, my voice raw, thick with emotion. But there was silence. More silence. Then a faint sound on the other end, like someone trying to breathe but unable to get enough air. I could hear him moving, shuffling, like he was pacing. "I don't know where I am, Dad," he said again, the words almost breaking. "But I found something. I found an address. I think it's where I am." My pulse quickened. "What address? Michael, please, I need an address. I need to know where you are." The words he gave me were the only thing I had. I scribbled them down on a scrap of paper, my hands trembling so badly that the letters blurred together. 4247, Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8, Moorfield, West Virginia. I didn't question it. I couldn't. It was a lifeline, a real lead. My son had given me something to follow. I repeated the address back to him, my mind already calculating the hours it would take to get there. I had to get there. I had to be there for him, just like I had promised all those years ago. "Stay there, Michael. I'll be there. I'm coming," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll try to wait, Dad," he said. "But I'm scared. I'm so scared. I don't know what's happening." "I know, son. I know," I whispered. "But I'm coming. Just hold on, okay? Stay there. Please, stay where you are." The line went dead again, and I was left holding the phone, heart pounding in my chest. I stared at the screen for a long time, waiting for another call that would never come. I had to go. I had no choice now. I had a son to find. I grabbed my keys, threw a bag together with some clothes, and got into my car. I didn't know what I was going to find when I arrived at that address. But I had to go. There was no other choice. My mind was already on the road ahead, driving through the night, heading toward the impossible. As I drove, the world outside felt distant. The road blurred as I sped through the dark, my hands clenched on the wheel, my mind repeating the address over and over again. 4247, Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8, Moorfield, West Virginia. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I couldn't stop now. The drive felt endless. My thoughts were a mess of confusion and fear. What would I find when I got there? Was I chasing a ghost, or was something real waiting for me at the end of this road? The road stretched out before me like an endless ribbon, the headlights from my car cutting through the darkness. My mind raced with every possible outcome. What was I walking into? What would I find when I reached Riverside Avenue? The logical side of my brain screamed that this was all a mistake, that I was chasing something impossible. But my heart, my desperate need to know, told me to keep going, that I couldn't stop until I had answers. The sky was still black, the stars distant and indifferent to the madness swirling inside me. I didn't dare stop for anything. I didn't even think about food or rest. I drove straight through the night, the hours blending together like a bad dream I couldn't escape. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face. I heard his voice, calling me, asking me for help, sounding so lost and afraid. I couldn't get that out of my head. It echoed through my mind, louder than the engine of the car, louder than anything else. As dawn broke, the first light of morning painted the world in muted colors, but I didn't feel the relief of the day. It was just another hour, another minute spent driving toward the unknown. My mind kept going back to the address. 4247, Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8. The words haunted me. I pulled into a gas station somewhere along the way, barely remembering how I got there. My legs were stiff from hours of driving, but I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to take my focus off what lay ahead. But my body betrayed me, and I had to take a break. I walked into the convenience store, trying to steady my breathing, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. The clerk behind the counter glanced at me, his eyes briefly flicking over my disheveled appearance, before returning to the magazine he was flipping through. I grabbed a bottle of water, paid quickly, and rushed back outside. As I got back in the car, the reality of what I was doing hit me all at once. I was driving across state lines to an address that shouldn't even exist, following a trail that had been buried for 20 years. What was I even hoping for? Was I going to find my son alive, waiting for me? Or was I chasing an illusion, a figment of my grief-stricken mind? But the phone call kept playing in my head, the fear in Michael's voice, his desperate plea for help. I couldn't turn back now. The drive continued, hour after hour, until I finally pulled into the sleepy town of Moorfield, West Virginia. The roads were quieter here, the streets lined with small, modest homes, their windows reflecting the early morning light. I felt a strange sense of unease. This wasn't just a town. It felt like a place trapped in time, frozen in some forgotten moment. I pulled up to the address, 4247, Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8. I stared at the building before me, feeling like I had stepped into another world. It was an old red brick apartment building, worn down by time and neglect. The windows were boarded up, the front door chained shut with a thick metal lock. A faded sign hung on the fence that read, "Condemned, no trespassing, scheduled for demolition." A cold knot formed in my stomach. This couldn't be right. How could Michael be here? He had said he was in an apartment, but this place looked abandoned. It was a building left to decay, forgotten by everyone. I parked across the street, staring at the building for a long time, unable to make sense of it. This was it. This was the address Michael had given me. But something about it felt wrong. This wasn't a place anyone could live. It was falling apart. But then, I remembered the words he had said. I found something. I found an address. I had to check. I had to see for myself. I got out of the car and walked toward the building. The street was quiet, the only sounds coming from the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. I reached the fence surrounding the property and noticed the holes in the chain link, the gaps large enough for someone to slip through. I pushed myself through one of them, my heart pounding in my chest. The moment I crossed onto the property, I felt a strange chill run through me. The air felt different here, heavy, thick with something I couldn't quite place. The building loomed over me, its empty windows like hollow eyes, watching me as I moved toward the front door. The door was locked, but around the side, I found a back door that had been broken open. I stepped inside, and the smell hit me immediately. Musty, like mildew, like something long forgotten. I pulled my phone out and turned on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness as I moved down the hallway. The wall. Dirt. This place had been abandoned for years, maybe longer. It felt like a place stuck in time, frozen in decay. I walked slowly, checking the apartment numbers on each door. Empty, empty, empty. Every apartment was the same, desolate, forgotten, like the people who had once lived here had simply vanished. I reached the stairwell and climbed to the second floor, my legs stiff from the hours of driving. The air was thick up here, too, but there was something else, a strange feeling I couldn't shake. And then I reached the third floor. It was the same as the others, except for one thing. At the end of the hallway, there was a door. Apartment 8. The door was closed. Unlike the others, this one wasn't cracked open or damaged. It was intact. The number 8 hung on the door in brass metal, polished and clean, shining in the dim light of my phone's beam. I froze for a moment, staring at it. Something inside me told me to turn around and leave, to get out of this building, to forget this whole thing and go home. But I had come this far. I had to know. I had to see. I reached for the doorknob, and, to my surprise, it turned easily. The door opened with barely a sound, as if it had been waiting for me to step inside. What I saw next made my heart stop. The apartment was immaculate. I stepped inside, and the contrast was jarring. Every other apartment in the building had been a hollow shell of decay, a forgotten relic of time. But this one was different. It was as if someone had been living here just yesterday. The walls were painted in a soft blue, smooth and fresh, with no signs of peeling or water damage. The carpet was beige and spotless, with neat vacuum lines running across it. The air, instead of smelling of rot and mildew, had the faintest scent of soap and coffee. Clean, comforting even. It felt too normal, too alive. I felt a strange sense of disbelief as I moved further into the apartment. This wasn't supposed to be here. This place was condemned. The building was scheduled for demolition. Yet this apartment looked like it belonged in a much newer, well-maintained building, not one on the verge of collapsing. I walked into the living room. The furniture was simple but well kept. A brown couch, a coffee table, a TV stand with a television on it. Everything was arranged with a sense of order, as if someone had taken care to make it homey, to make it lived in. Then my eyes fell to the walls. The photographs. I approached them slowly, a tight knot forming in my stomach. They were pictures of my family, my wife, my son, and me. I recognized every single one of them. There was one from Michael's first day of kindergarten, another from his 10th birthday party, a Christmas morning when he was 12, and one from his high school graduation. All familiar, all memories I had locked away in my heart. But there was more. On the next wall, there were newer photographs, ones I'd never seen before. These pictures showed Michael in his 20s, maybe even in his 30s. He looked older, of course, but it was unmistakably him. In one photo, he stood in front of a college building wearing a graduation gown, smiling.
In another, he sat at a restaurant with a group of friends I didn't recognize. There was even one of him standing in front of this very apartment building, alive, well, and smiling, probably around 35 years old. My breath caught in my throat. These photos weren't possible. Michael had died at 19. He never had the chance to live past that age. But here they were, showing him alive in ways I couldn't understand. I stepped back, my heart racing as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. My mind was breaking down the walls of what I knew, shattering everything in its path. I took my phone out and snapped a picture of the photos, my hands trembling so badly that the images came out blurry. I had to capture this. I had to prove that this was happening, that I wasn't losing my mind. I moved into the kitchen, but the sense of confusion didn't let up. It only grew stronger. The kitchen was fully stocked, clean, and orderly. The dishes were drying on the rack, a coffee mug on the counter with a little bit of brown liquid still in the bottom. It wasn't cold. In fact, it was still warm, as though someone had just used it. I ran my fingers over the mug, and the warmth sent a shock of disbelief through my body. I opened the refrigerator. The milk inside had a date on it, 5 days from today. Fresh food, fresh leftovers in containers. The milk, the eggs, everything was real, still usable. How was this possible? The building was abandoned. There was no way someone could live here. It was condemned, marked for demolition.
I closed the refrigerator and noticed a note stuck to the door with a magnet. My hands shook as I reached for it. The handwriting was familiar. So familiar that it nearly made my heart stop. It was Michael's handwriting. The messy, scrawled script I had known for years, from the days when he was in middle school. I held the note in my trembling hands and read it. "Dad, if you're reading this, I need you to know I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I don't know how it happened, but I've been trying to figure it out. I know I'm not supposed to be here. I know I'm not supposed to be alive, but somehow I am. Everything is wrong. I'm scared, Dad. I don't know what to do." I felt the room spin around me. My legs went weak beneath me, and I stumbled back against the counter for support. The words on the note seemed to bleed together, the ink becoming a blur as I tried to comprehend what I was reading. How? How was this possible? How could Michael be alive when I had buried him? How could he have written this note? How was he living in an apartment that shouldn't exist? I dropped the note, my mind reeling with questions, with a confusion so intense that it felt like I was drowning. But the note was still there, staring back at me with the undeniable truth that I had no answers for. And then, like a shot to the chest, the reality of it all hit me. Michael had somehow come back. Somehow he had found a way to return. But why? How? I had to know. I had to find out what was going on. But then, just as quickly as the air left my lungs, a noise echoed from the hallway behind me. A door creaked. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Someone was here. The sound of the door creaking echoed through the apartment, sending a jolt of adrenaline straight to my heart. I froze, every muscle in my body tensed, my breath shallow. The apartment, once an oasis of confusion, now felt like a cage. It felt wrong. Too wrong. I turned slowly, my eyes darting toward the hallway. I didn't want to move, but my legs were already carrying me toward the source of the sound. The hallway was just as dark and empty as it had been when I first entered the apartment. But there, at the far end, I saw a shadow. It was barely a flicker at first, but it was enough to make my pulse race. Someone, no, something, was standing there, at the edge of the darkness, just out of reach of my phone's flashlight. My breath caught in my throat. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. My hand clenched tightly around my phone, as if it were some kind of protection. The silence in the room was deafening, my heartbeat now the loudest sound in the apartment. No answer. I took a step forward, then another, each one bringing me closer to the figure that stood just beyond the reach of the light.
The hallway stretched out before me, an endless corridor of silence and uncertainty. And then, the figure moved. At first, it was a slight shift, a shadow just a few inches out of place. Then it took a step toward me. My throat closed up, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't obey. I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, shaking with fear. And then, I saw it clearly. It wasn't a person at all. It was Michael. But it wasn't the Michael I remembered. The Michael I saw now was different, older, and his face was distorted. His features weren't quite right, like a reflection in a funhouse mirror, familiar yet off. His eyes, the eyes that I had known and loved for 19 years, were now empty, hollow, like there was nothing behind them but darkness. His form flickered, like static on a broken screen. He was there, and then he wasn't. It was like watching a ghost in and out of focus. "Dad." The voice, too, was his, but it wasn't. It echoed, distorted, like he was speaking from the other side of a thick wall. The words were slurred, twisted, impossible to understand. I stumbled backward, my breath coming in shallow, panicked gasps. This couldn't be real. It couldn't be happening. But there he was, standing in the doorway, his presence so undeniable that it sent a chill through my bones. "Michael?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "What's happening? What are you? What's going on?" He didn't answer. Instead, he took another step forward, his body moving strangely, like he was being pulled from somewhere else, his movements jerky and unnatural. My heart raced as I tried to comprehend what was happening. The figure in front of me was my son, but it wasn't. It couldn't be. I reached out a hand, as though to touch him, but I hesitated. What if I touched him and nothing was there? What if he disappeared entirely? What if I was losing my mind? But before I could make the decision, he spoke again. "I remember," he said, his voice strained, almost a whisper. "I remember. Everything. I died, Dad. I felt it. I felt it when the truck hit me, but now, I don't know where I am. I don't know why I'm here. Everything's wrong." The words hit me like a wave crashing over me, and for a moment, everything else faded away. I was no longer standing in the apartment, in the hallway. I was back in that moment at the hospital, touching Michael's cold, lifeless hand, standing beside the coffin as they lowered him into the earth. But this wasn't the same. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. And yet, "Michael," I whispered again, more to myself than to him. "Please, help me understand. Please." He looked at me with those empty, hollow eyes, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of recognition behind them. But it was gone almost instantly. Instead, his face twisted, his expression filled with something I couldn't quite describe. Fear, confusion, longing. I don't know what's happening," he said, his voice distant now. "I don't know where I am, and I can't feel anything. I can't even remember how I got here. I keep trying to figure it out. I keep trying to find something that makes sense, but it's all just broken." His words were like shards of glass, each one cutting deeper into my heart. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't even know if this was real, but I had to know. I had to understand. "Michael, please," I said again, my voice desperate now. "Please tell me what's going on. Where are you? Where did you go? What happened after the accident? Please." And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he vanished, gone, like a breath caught in time. He disappeared into nothingness, leaving me standing in the silence of the apartment, staring at the spot where he had been. I felt the weight of the room press in on me, the air thick with the absence of his presence. I reached out, my hands trembling, but there was nothing but emptiness.
I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. I didn't know what I had just witnessed. Was it real? Had I imagined it all? I needed to know. I stood in the apartment, frozen, unable to move, my mind still struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Michael, my son, had been there. I had seen him with my own eyes. But now, he was gone, vanished, like smoke in the air, leaving only the lingering traces of something I couldn't grasp. I ran my hands through my hair, my thoughts spinning in a chaotic whirl. What had just happened? Was I losing my mind? Had I really just seen my son, the same son I had buried 2 decades ago? Or had I imagined it all? But no, it had been real. I could still feel the echoes of his presence in the room, the weight of his voice, the desperation in his words. I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't crazy. This had happened, and it had to mean something. I pulled myself together, took a deep breath, and looked around the apartment again. The walls, the furniture, the photographs, they were all still there, solid and unchanging. But everything felt different now. The apartment was no longer just an empty shell. It felt like a doorway, a threshold between 2 worlds, between the life I had known and the impossible reality that was unfolding before me. I walked over to the table, where Michael's note was still lying. His handwriting, messy and familiar, seemed to be calling out to me, urging me to understand. I picked it up again, my hands shaking as I read the words over and over. I know I'm not supposed to be here. I know I'm not supposed to be alive, but somehow I am. Everything is wrong. I'm scared, Dad. I don't know what to do. The note was a confession of confusion, a cry for help from someone who wasn't supposed to be alive, someone who was supposed to be dead. I felt my chest tighten. The fear, the grief, the uncertainty. It all came flooding back. This wasn't just about Michael anymore. This was something bigger, something I couldn't explain. And the more I tried to make sense of it, the more the pieces refused to fit. I turned back toward the hallway. I had to leave. I had to find answers. But my feet felt heavy, like they were stuck in cement, unable to move. I had already been through so much. I had already buried my son, watched him slip away, felt the pain of losing him. I couldn't lose him again. But I had to go back. I had to find out where Michael had gone, why he had come back, if he had really come back at all. I turned toward the door, but something made me stop. It wasn't the flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, or the sudden coldness that filled the air. It was the feeling. The same feeling that had gripped me when I first entered the apartment. That same pull, that same connection to something beyond comprehension. I looked around one last time. The apartment, despite its cleanliness and warmth, felt colder now. The photos on the wall seemed to watch me, their eyes following my every move. The dishes in the kitchen felt too clean, too real. Everything in this place felt wrong, out of place. And the more I looked, the more I realized something I couldn't ignore. The apartment wasn't just a place for someone to live. It was a place for someone to hide. A sudden thought hit me like a lightning bolt, and I gasped as the realization washed over me. This apartment, this entire building, it was a memory. It was a place frozen in time, a place that Michael had created for himself. But it wasn't just his apartment. It was a reflection of something he had left behind, something that had been trapped in the past. I ran back to the photographs, my fingers trembling as I touched them. The ones of Michael and me, those were real. But the other photos, the ones of him older, in his 20s and 30s, those couldn't be. They were a lie, a figment of some twisted dream. a dream that had somehow bled into reality. The walls around me felt like they were closing in. The room began to feel smaller, suffocating. I took a step back, my heart racing. Then it hit me. Michael had given me a clue. The address, 4247 Riverside Avenue, Apartment 8. It wasn't just an address. It was a location. A point in space and time where something had gone wrong. Where the boundary between life and death had been breached. Where he had been trapped. I had to leave. I had to go back to the cemetery. I had to see Michael's grave again. I had to know for sure. Was he really gone? Or had something else happened? Was he truly dead? Or was he caught in some strange limbo? I grabbed my phone, clutching it tight in my hand. I checked the call history again, hoping, praying that the evidence would provide some clarity. But it was the same. The call log still showed Michael's name. The same timestamp, 2:47 a.m., 9 minutes and 43 seconds. I could hardly breathe as I stared at the screen. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a hallucination. This was real. I ran out of the apartment, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway felt longer now, darker, like it was closing in on me. I didn't stop until I reached the car. I had to get back to the cemetery. I had to find the truth. The drive back to the cemetery was agonizing. Every minute felt like an eternity. My thoughts a constant storm of confusion, fear, and desperation. I couldn't make sense of what had happened. How could Michael be alive? How could he have been calling me after all this time? How could I have buried him, felt his cold hand in mine, and yet still hear his voice on the other end of the phone? I had to find the truth. I had to see with my own eyes that Michael was still buried in that grave, that there was no more mystery, no more unanswered questions. The road blurred as I drove, the streets of Moorfield fading behind me. But the weight of the unanswered questions stayed with me. The cemetery wasn't far from the apartment building. I had visited it so many times over the years, each Sunday without fail. But today felt different. Today, it felt like I was walking into the unknown. I reached the cemetery gates just as the sun began to rise. The light was weak, cold, almost like the earth itself was holding its breath. I parked my car and stepped out, the chill of the morning air cutting through my clothes. I walked slowly toward the section of the cemetery where Michael's grave lay. The path was familiar. The trees overhead, the branches stretching out like arms, created a canopy of shadows in the ground. The oak tree, the one I had stood beneath every Sunday for 20 years, was still there, its gnarled branches twisted toward the sky, its leaves rustling in the early morning breeze. I walked past the rows of headstones, each one a reminder of a life lost, but none more significant to me than Michael's. I reached his grave, and my breath caught in my throat. The ground was undisturbed. The gravestone, gray stone, still stood tall, etched with his name, Michael James Porter, born April 12, 1986, died November 3, 2005, 19 years old. I knelt down beside the grave, my fingers brushing the cold stone, the same stone I had touched so many times over the years. I felt the weight of the past press in on me, but today it felt different. It felt heavier. I closed my eyes, trying to push away the overwhelming flood of memories. I remembered the day of the funeral, the pain, the tears, the disbelief that had followed, the memory of standing there, watching as they lowered the casket into the earth, the sound of the machinery, the smell of the dirt. It had all been so final. But now it felt like that finality was slipping away. It felt like the ground beneath me was shifting, and I wasn't sure if I was standing on solid ground anymore. I put my hand on the earth above Michael's grave, the soil cold beneath my palm. "Michael," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Are you still here?" A gust of wind swept through the cemetery, rustling the leaves of the oak tree above me. For a moment, the air felt charged, electric. My heart pounded in my chest. I stayed there for a long time, my hand resting on the grave, my mind spinning in a whirlwind of disbelief. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that this wasn't just about Michael anymore. This wasn't just about a lost child, a lost son. It was about something else, something bigger. Finally, I stood up and took a step back. I looked at the grave one last time, the cold reality of what I had just seen, what I had just experienced, settling over me like a heavy cloak. And then, just as I was about to turn and leave, my phone rang again. The screen lit up in the dim morning light, and I felt my heart skip a beat. Michael's name. Again. I didn't hesitate this time. I answered the phone immediately, my hands trembling, my breath caught in my chest. "Michael?" I said, my voice shaking. There was a long silence on the other end, and then I heard his voice. But this time, it wasn't the desperate, confused voice from before. It was quieter, more distant, like he was speaking from far away. "Dad?" His voice was hoarse, broken, like he had been crying. My pulse quickened. "Michael, where are you? What's going on?" "I'm still here," he said, his voice faint. I don't know what happened, but I can't get out. I can't leave." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean? Where are you? What do you need?" "I don't know how to explain it, Dad," he said, his words trailing off. "I'm still here, but I don't belong here. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. I need you. Please." The line went dead again. I stood there, the phone still pressed to my ear, staring at it in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Not again. The ground beneath me felt unstable, like it was shifting, pulling me into something I didn't understand. My son, my dead son, had just spoken to me again. But this time, it wasn't a call for help. It wasn't a cry for rescue. It was something more. I couldn't wait anymore. I had to go back. I had to find out what was really going on. This wasn't just about Michael anymore. It was about everything. Everything I had lost. Everything I had believed to be true. I drove back to the apartment. I couldn't stay at the cemetery any longer. I couldn't keep questioning the ground beneath me, the silence that surrounded me. I had to get answers. I had to go back to the apartment. The apartment where Michael had left me his last cryptic messages. The apartment that held all the answers, even if I didn't understand them yet. I drove back to Moorfield, my mind still racing with confusion and dread. My heart, heavy with the weight of his words, pounded in my chest as I followed the winding roads back to the apartment building that had haunted me ever since I'd stepped foot in it. Each mile felt like a ticking clock, a countdown to something I wasn't ready to face. As I approached the building, my stomach twisted. It loomed in front of me like a shadow, something out of place in the real world. The boarded-up windows, the faded orange sign declaring it condemned, it all screamed wrongness, like it shouldn't exist. But there it was, standing in defiance of reason, refusing to make sense. I parked across the street, just as I had done before. This time, however, I felt no hesitation. I knew what I had to do. I had to go back inside. I had to find the truth, no matter how twisted it was, no matter how impossible it seemed. I walked toward the fence again, that same feeling of unease crawling up my spine. The air was colder now, the streets quieter, almost too quiet. I slipped through the hole in the chain-link fence and made my way toward the building. The door was still locked, chained up just like before, but as I rounded the side, I saw the broken lock on the back door, the same door I had entered through earlier. I took a deep breath and pushed it open, the creaking sound echoing through the empty halls. The same smell of mold and rot hit me, but it was more than that now. It was a smell of decay, not just in the building, but in the whole situation. This place wasn't just abandoned, it was wrong. I couldn't explain why, but it was. I made my way through the hallway again, the darkness swallowing the edges of my vision. I was drawn to the third floor once more, as though some invisible force was guiding me. My legs were stiff, my hands shaking with each step, but I kept moving, knowing that whatever was waiting for me at the end of this journey had to be confronted. When I reached the door to apartment 8, I hesitated for a brief moment. The brass number on the door shone in the dim light, clean and polished, as if it had been waiting for me. I didn't need to touch the doorknob this time. I just knew. I opened the door and stepped inside, bracing myself for whatever came next. The apartment looked exactly as it had before, but there was something different this time. The air felt heavier, charged with energy. I could almost hear the whispers of memories that weren't mine, the echoes of someone else's life that didn't belong here. I walked through the living room again, each step feeling more surreal than the last. The pictures on the wall stared back at me, my family, but not my family. These were photos of Michael, but they weren't just memories. They were moments that never happened. I moved past the photographs, my hands brushing against the frames, trying to make sense of them. But I couldn't. It was like trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces. I was close to unraveling the mystery, but I couldn't see the full picture yet. I moved into the kitchen, and again, I found the dishes drying in the rack. The same coffee mug sat on the counter, the same brown liquid still in the bottom. I turned away from it, not wanting to touch it again. The apartment wasn't a place to stay. It wasn't meant for living. It was meant for hiding something that didn't belong in the world. And then, I saw it. The note on the fridge was gone. My stomach dropped. It had been there when I first arrived. Michael's handwriting, his last words to me. But now, it was gone. The fridge was empty, its door slightly ajar. I opened it, my mind racing with questions, but the only thing inside was emptiness. Nothing. Panic surged through me. I turned around, my eyes searching the apartment in a frenzy. The walls, the floors, the furniture. It was all the same, but something had changed. The apartment felt emptier now, like it had been drained of all life, all meaning. It was just an empty shell, a hollow place that had once held something real. I walked back to the living room, my heart hammering in my chest, and that's when I saw it. On the coffee table, resting in the center of the room, was a phone. It wasn't just any phone. It was Michael's phone, the same one I had kept for years, the one that had been disconnected, the one that had called me. I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I reached for it, as if the phone might bite me, as if it would shatter the fragile reality I was clinging to. I picked it up, and when I turned it on, it was as if nothing had changed. The screen lit up with his contact information. Michael James Porter. The phone was still connected. I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. This wasn't possible. This phone shouldn't be working. It had been disconnected. I stared at the phone in my hands, the cold, familiar plastic suddenly feeling alien. Every inch of it seemed like a bridge between two worlds, between the life I knew and the twisted reality I was being pulled into.
The screen, still glowing with Michael's contact info, felt like an open wound, one that refused to heal no matter how many years had passed. I had to call. I had to know what was happening. I didn't know how much longer I could stand here, frozen in place, waiting for answers that wouldn't come. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands, and pressed the dial button. The phone rang. The familiar sound echoed through the apartment, each ring growing louder and louder until it was all I could hear. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath quick and shallow as I waited for the call to connect. The phone rang again, and again. On the third ring, someone picked up. Hello? It wasn't Michael's voice. It wasn't anyone I knew. It was a voice I had never heard before, but it was too familiar, too strange. The tone was sharp, almost mechanical, like someone reading from a script. I froze. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. There was a pause. For a moment, I thought the call had been disconnected, but then the voice spoke again. "This is Michael's phone." The words came through slowly, deliberately, as if the person on the other end was choosing their words carefully. "But Michael can't talk to you right now." I felt my stomach drop. My pulse quickened. "What do you mean? Where is Michael? What's going on? Please, tell me. What's happening to him?" The voice on the other end seemed to hesitate, as though unsure of how much to say. I could hear the faint sound of something in the background, static maybe, before the voice came through again, this time with more urgency. "Michael is in a place between," the voice said, its tone low and uneasy. "He can't leave. Not yet. Not until—" The call cut off. I stared at the phone in disbelief, my entire body trembling. The words echoed in my mind, reverberating through every part of me. In a place between. What did that even mean? Was this some kind of joke? A twisted, cruel joke that the universe had decided to play on me? Or was there something more to this, something I couldn't see? I didn't know what to think anymore. My son, who had died all those years ago, was somehow calling me from a place I couldn't understand. And now, I was hearing voices that told me he wasn't gone. Not really. Not in the way I thought he was. I couldn't wait any longer. The need to know, to find the truth, burned inside me like wildfire. I couldn't sit here anymore, listening to voices and riddles. I had to find Michael. I had to get to the bottom of this, no matter how impossible it seemed. I grabbed my keys and stormed out of the apartment, the door slamming behind me. The cold air hit me like a slap in the face as I walked down the stairs, my mind racing. I had been chasing answers for so long. Now, it felt like the answers were slipping through my fingers, just out of reach. I didn't even know where I was going, but I knew I had to go. I had to follow this trail. I had to find Michael, or whatever was left of him, no matter where it took me. I reached the car and slammed the door shut, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as I started the engine. The wheels screeched against the pavement as I sped out of the parking lot, heading toward the only destination I had left, the cemetery, the place where I had buried my son, the place where I had said goodbye. But now, it felt like I was heading into something far darker, far deeper than I had ever imagined. I didn't know what awaited me, but I knew I had to face it. Whatever this was, I couldn't keep running from it. As I drove, I felt like I was losing control, like everything was slipping away. The lines between reality and the impossible blurred with every mile, every turn I made. My mind raced with 1,000 different questions, none of which had answers. The only thing I knew was that I had to go back to the cemetery, back to where it all began. I arrived at the gates just as the sun began to set. The cemetery looked different now. The trees, the gravestones, the air, it all felt heavier, like the world itself had shifted. I parked near Michael's grave and stepped out of the car, my legs unsteady beneath me. I walked slowly, deliberately, toward the spot where I had stood so many times before. The oak tree still stood tall, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. I walked past the rows of graves, each one a testament to a life lived and lost, until I reached Michael's grave. I knelt down, my heart heavy, my hands shaking as I touched the cold stone of his gravestone. I could feel the weight of everything, the grief, the loss, the confusion, pressing down on me. "Michael," I whispered, my voice breaking, "are you really gone? Or are you still here? Are you in this world, or are you somewhere else? Tell me, please, tell me." The wind rustled the leaves above me, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. And then, the phone rang again. I froze as the phone rang. The sound shattered the stillness of the cemetery, cutting through the heavy silence that had settled around me. My heart skipped a beat, and for a moment, I thought I might be dreaming. The phone, the same phone that had called me before, was now vibrating in my pocket. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. I could feel it in my chest, in the pit of my stomach. It was Michael. I pulled the phone from my pocket with trembling hands, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The screen lit up with his name again, Michael James Porter. The same contact that had haunted me for days, but this time, something felt different. Something was off. I answered the call, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. "Michael?" My voice cracked, weak and desperate. "Michael, where are you? What's happening?" There was a long silence, a silence so thick I could almost hear the wind rustling the leaves around me. My eyes darted from the gravestone to the phone, but nothing happened. No voice, no sound. And then, finally, I heard it. His voice. But it wasn't the same. It was distorted, barely recognizable, like a voice coming through a broken speaker, a voice echoing from a far-off place. The words were fuzzy at first, unclear, but they pierced the air nonetheless. "Dad," Michael's voice whispered through the phone, thin and hollow. "Dad, I can't stay here much longer. I'm stuck. I'm trapped, and I don't know how to get out." I closed my eyes, trying to focus on his words, trying to make sense of them, but they were slipping through my fingers like sand. "Where are you, Michael?" I choked out, my throat tight. "Where are you calling from? What's happening?" "I don't know," he replied, his voice breaking. "I remember the accident. I remember everything. The truck. It hit me. I died, Dad. I know I died. But I woke up in this place. I can't explain it, but it's not right. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be alive." I felt a chill run through me, as if the very air around me had turned to ice. Michael was speaking, but what he was saying didn't make sense. How could he be alive? How could he have woken up from the accident, from death itself? The wind picked up, the branches of the oak tree above me creaking in the growing breeze. It felt like the world itself was closing in around me, pulling me into something I wasn't ready for. "Where are you, Michael?" I asked again, my voice more frantic now. "Where are you calling from?" "I don't know, Dad," he said, the words coming slower now, like he was struggling to speak. "It's like I'm in between. I'm in some place where time doesn't make sense. Things aren't the way they should be. I can't find my way out, and I don't know how to explain it. I don't belong here, but I can't leave." My breath caught in my throat. This was impossible. My son, my dead son, was telling me he was trapped, that he didn't belong in this place, that he was stuck somewhere between life and death. How could this be happening? How could I be having a conversation with a ghost, with a memory that shouldn't exist? I took a step back, feeling the ground beneath me shift. It wasn't just the phone call. It was everything. The apartment, the grave, the note. Everything was leading to this. Everything was pointing to the fact that Michael wasn't truly gone. Not in the way I had believed. "Michael, please," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Please tell me where you are. I'll come get you. I'll find you. Just tell me where you are." "I don't know," he repeated, his voice barely audible now. "I can't find my way. I keep looking for a way out, but it's like I'm walking in circles. There's no way out. There's no escape. I felt a pang of terror shoot through me. My mind screamed that this couldn't be real, that I was losing my grip on reality, that this was all just some sick delusion. But the more I listened, the more it felt like I was hearing something true, something that couldn't be ignored. "I'm coming to get you, Michael," I said, my voice trembling. "I'll find you. I won't leave you there. I won't leave you stuck in this place." But then, the line went dead. The phone went silent, just like that. I stared at the screen, my fingers still gripping the phone as if it might slip away. The call had ended, just like the others. Gone. I felt my legs give out beneath me, and I sank to my knees beside Michael's grave, overwhelmed by the weight of everything. The phone still in my hand, the call history still showing his name. The same name I had seen for 20 years. The same name that had been buried with him. But this time, the name wasn't just a memory. It was a lifeline to something I didn't understand. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't stay in the cemetery, lost in this whirlwind of confusion. I had to follow Michael's call. I had to find the truth, the place he was stuck in, the place he couldn't leave. It was waiting for me, and I would go to it. I would go to the ends of the earth if I had to find him and bring him back. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my hand still gripping the phone, its warmth now a strange comfort amidst the overwhelming cold that had settled around me. Michael's voice still echoed in my mind, reverberating through every fiber of my being. I couldn't shake it. I couldn't let it go. I had to find him. I had to get to him. The wind picked up, swirling around me like a whispered warning. The trees above seemed to groan with every gust, their branches creaking like old bones. The shadows of the cemetery stretched long and dark, and I felt a strange pull, something urging me to keep moving, to keep searching. But what was I searching for? The call had ended, the line going silent just like the others, and yet I knew in my bones that Michael was still out there, trapped in whatever place he had fallen into. That place, between, as he had called it. What did that mean? Was it some kind of purgatory? A limbo? A space between the living and the dead, where time itself didn't exist? I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't sit in this graveyard, haunted by my own memories, my own grief. The answers lay somewhere else, in the mystery that had been unfolding for days. I had to follow Michael's call. I had to follow it wherever it led me. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady beneath me, my breath shaky. The cold of the morning was starting to seep into my bones, but it wasn't just the temperature that made me feel numb. It was the weight of everything that had happened. The phone calls, the apartment, the notes, the photographs, all leading to this one moment, the one question I had been avoiding. What was I supposed to do now? I walked back to my car, my hands trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. The engine roared to life, and I pulled out of the cemetery, my mind racing. I had been here before, driving through this small town, chasing a trail I couldn't understand. But now, the pieces were starting to come together. The apartment, the calls, Michael's voice. They were all connected to one thing, the truth, whatever it was. I drove through the quiet streets of Moorfield, my mind a whirlwind of confusion, frustration, and fear. I passed the old buildings, the familiar landmarks, but everything felt different now.
"Why did you do this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. I wasn't sure if I was speaking to the figure or to myself. "Why are you doing this?" The figure tilted its head, its hollow gaze locking onto mine. "I didn't do anything. Your son did this," it said softly. "He wanted to return. He called to you, brought you here. He's the one who trapped you. He's the one who couldn't move on." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "No," I said, my voice trembling. "He didn't want this. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He didn't know. He didn't know." "He didn't know," the figure repeated, its voice a mockery of sympathy.
He didn't understand what he was doing. He wanted to come back, but the price was steep. He can't leave, and neither can you. I felt the walls closing in around me, my chest tightening as I struggled to breathe. "What do you want from me?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop myself. The words felt heavy in my mouth, like they were meant to be a plea for help, but all I could do was whisper them in despair. "I don't want anything from you," the figure said, its tone growing colder. "But now you're part of this. You've seen the truth. You've stepped into a place between, and you'll never leave." A cold shiver ran down my spine. The reality of what it was saying sank in. This wasn't just about Michael. This wasn't just about a son lost to death. This was about something far darker, something beyond my comprehension. The place between life and death. The place where souls were trapped, where they couldn't move on, and where anyone who stumbled upon it would become a part of the cycle. "No!" I gasped, shaking my head, my hands pressing against my ears as if blocking out the words could make it stop. "No! I can't stay here! I won't stay here! I won't—" But before I could finish, the figure stepped closer, its presence suffocating, its form more tangible now, more real. The air grew colder with each step it took toward me, until the temperature in the room felt like the edge of winter. "You don't have a choice," it said, its voice now an echo, a hollow reflection of the world around us. "You've already made it." I backed away, my hands shaking, but there was nowhere to go. The apartment walls were closing in, the dark corners of the room swallowing up the space around me. My head spun, my vision blurred with panic. I needed to get out. I needed to leave this place before it consumed me, before I became another lost soul, trapped in the in-between. But no matter how hard I tried, no matter how fast I moved, I couldn't escape. Every door seemed to lead to the same place, the same room, the same twisted figure. "You're part of the cycle now," the figure said again, its voice distorted, like it was coming from all directions at once. "Just like him. Just like Michael. You can't leave. You're trapped here, just like him." I sank to my knees, my body giving out under the weight of what I was hearing. The figure was right. I had been drawn into this place, this cycle, this limbo between life and death. And now there was no way out. The room began to spin, the walls distorting, warping, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling around me. I tried to stand, tried to fight against the pull of the darkness, but I couldn't. It was as if my body had betrayed me, as if it refused to obey. I felt the cold seeping into my bones, the despair gnawing at my soul. And then, amidst the chaos, I heard it again, the voice, Michael's voice. "Dad!" I looked up, my heart leaping in my chest. The voice, clear and real, sliced through the air like a beacon of light. But when I turned, there was no one there. Only the figure, still watching me, still standing in the corner of the room, its hollow eyes fixed on me with that twisted, mocking grin. "Michael!" I cried out, my voice filled with desperation. "Where are you? Please, where are you?" The figure laughed, a sound that made my blood run cold. "He's not here, Father," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "He's already gone, and so are you." And in that moment, I knew it was true. Michael was lost. He was gone, and so was I. The room around me dissolved into nothingness, the shadows swallowing everything until I was left in a space of pure darkness, trapped between worlds.